Hello and welcome to Safe for Work, Prime Minister's Questions, with me, Graham Hughes. We're about to go over to the House, which we'll do in a moment. That they haven't actually started yet. They're still asking Welsh questions about Wales, I assume. And we just had the unedifying sight of that little Boris Johnson clone, the weird one with the strange hair, Fabricant. Yeah, he was just standing up in Parliament. So you were spared that, but it's Deputy PMQs this week. Rishi Sunak's run away. Brave Sir Rishi has run away to Scotland. So let's dive into it, shall we?
Just questions. I wish to welcome a special guest who is observing
PMQs, except the PM
today.
isn't present for 2 weeks, and the guy replacing him is
House
about,
of Representatives,
if not more useless and actually answering questions than he.
I also wish to make a short statement. I'm sure the whole House will wish to join with me in celebrating the fact that today is the 75th anniversary of the founding of the NHS.
See the future!
A couple of days before it started, the Health Minister, Aneurin Bevan, said in a message to the medical profession, on the 5th of July, we start together. The new National Health Service. It has not had an altogether trouble-free gestation. There have been understandable anxieties, inevitable in so great and novel an undertaking. But the sooner we start, the sooner we can try together to see these things and to secure the improvements we all want. It is fair to say that 75 years later, the NHS still faces challenge, but it is right today that we celebrate an institution which treats over 1 million people a day. In particular, I'm sure members across the House
Madak, I don't doubt that, mate.
In celebrating the staff of the NHS, past, present and across all our constituencies.
Apparently that's why the Prime Minister can't be there today.
To them, I say, on behalf of the House, thank you for your outstanding contribution to the health and well-being of us all. And of course, the National Health Service Act is a reminder of the vital role of this House in creating debating legislation as part of a democratic process. So I say to previous MPs, thank you for what you did. We will not forget.
Yeah, Jabroni, I absolutely agree with that. I'm doing a video about the toxic environment in Parliament. It should be out this afternoon, hopefully.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Angelina versus Ollie Dunderhead. There's a written question.
Mr. Speaker.
It'll probably come on the screen.
I have been asked to reply on behalf of my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, who is actually attending a service.
Where's the Prime Minister? There you go. That's the question.
Westminster Abbey to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the NHS.
Couldn't have had it another time.
Mr. Speaker, may I associate myself with your comments.
Just shunted it across
the
like
NHS continues to be a treasured national institution.
Unlike you.
And I'm sure colleagues
Unlike
across
the Tories
House in this session will join you in celebrating its values, its achievements, and in thanking staff for their huge commitment to patients. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Exciting stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
Rage
can I too associate myself with the remarks you made celebrating the 75th anniversary of the NHS, and on behalf of my constituents and all our constituents, thank them for the work they do day in and day out. Last Friday, Mr. Speaker, I met with a group of residents who have raised a petition to keep the last bank in Corringham Town open. The viability of our town centres is often dependent on the presence of a small number of anchor businesses such as a post office or a bank. Can my right honourable friend therefore tell the House what action the government can take to ensure that at least one of these maintains a high street presence to support businesses and residents alike, particularly when these organisations have received significant government support?
Oh yeah, socialism. Socialism for private enterprise.
Absolutely
That's the Tory
right
way.
To raise this issue. Banks are a cornerstone of our high streets, Of course, it's ultimately a commercial decision for banks, but I
jabroni,
do think it's right that they take into account the views of local communities, and I'm sure the bank in question will have heard the NHS so much they want to sell it to their mates. My honourable friend, and I trust that they will take appropriate action.
A little bit of a backhander, a little bit of a finder's fee.
Angela Rayner.
Here's Angela Rayner. Knock 'em dead, Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I associate myself and thank you for your opening comments regarding our NHS, and thank all of those staff that have worked and continue to work in our NHS today. And I'm sure members across the whole House will join me in paying tribute to Lord Bob Kerslake, a decent and kind man who accomplished so much in both local and national government during a lifetime of public service. Our heartfelt condolences go to his family. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to see the right honourable gentleman here today. I think I'm right in saying that I have the pleasure again next week, 2 weeks on the trot. They really have given up. Every day.
Yes.
Every day. 4,000 families' mortgages deals expire, 100,000 more since we last met, and millions more next year.
Wow.
Families are sick with worry
I'm a
about the
redhead
cost
as well,
of
mate.
the Tory mortgage
mixed
bombshell. Do they still claim to be the party of home ownership?
Indeed.
Well, may I begin by associating myself with the Right Honourable Lady's remarks about Lord Bob Kerslake. I knew him from my time in Downing Street. He was a stalwart public servant, and he will be missed by many on both sides of this House.
Answer the question.
It may come as a surprise to the Right Honourable Lady, but actually some leaders trust their deputies to stand in for them.
What?
And when it comes to mortgage rates, I support the independence of the Bank of England taking the necessary measures to control inflation.
That was a Labour policy, wasn't it? The independence of the Bank of England.
About what we have
done.
A
Labour policy. That's interesting.
They've said we have taken decisive and responsible action to bring down inflation, and we will continue to do so. But what's Labour's plan? To borrow £28 billion a year.
Oh, he's going to repeat that lie.
Pushing up inflation.
Go on.
To cut our
Are you going to correct the record?
Supply, pushing up inflation.
What? No, to boost the supply.
Saving into their pensions.
Going to get rid.
Pushing up inflation.
What a lying. He's just lying. Like, he's going to have to correct the record on this because, first of all, that Labour have said they're committing to 28 billion in the future, but like after a few years. But secondly, that thing about less energy. No, we'll have more energy because one of the first things Labour's going to do is backheel the moratorium that these bastards have put on onshore wind farms. That's what it's not admitting to here.
Have it from Labour.
There'll be more energy, not less.
And higher prices.
Endless borrowing. Our debt to GDP ratio used to be around 66%. Now it's over 100%. So when Labour left office, it was around 66%. Now it is over 100. Debt to GDP.
Mr. Speaker, we've had 13 years of Conservative failures, and that homeowners watching that pathetic answer will be cringing that they aren't celebrating the government's success. They're counting the cost of their failures, and the only thing that's not soaring in prices at the moment is his gags that are getting cheaper by the minute. And Mr. Speaker, it's not just homeowners that are suffering. Security of renters have been ripped away too, with higher mortgage costs handed directly to them. Given most renters live in homes with buy-to-let mortgage, can he tell us, are buy-to-let properties included in their mortgage support package, yes or no?
Go on, answer the question.
Well, it's actually the case that under this government, and thanks to my right honourable friend,
he means yes.
The Secretary of State for Levelling Up,
protecting
that we have introduced legislation for the first time to support renters, to give them greater security of tenure. And of course, the Chancellor will take all necessary measures to stand behind both mortgage holders and, of course, take necessary measures for renters. But look, we have a choice in this country, and the choice that we have made
Katrina, good point. No ban on wind farms in Scotland.
Economy, giving us the fastest growing economy in the G7 for the past 2 years. creating jobs with record low unemployment and
so
increasing people.
Again, he's lying. He's basically saying it's the fastest growing in the last 2 years. I mean, our economy still hasn't recovered from pre-pandemic levels. So do you know what I mean? It's like what he's done there is that old trick of shooting a hole in a barn door and then drawing a circle around it and pretending you've hit a bullseye.
Wages by providing the national living wage, £1,600 into everyone's pockets. That's how this government is supporting people.
Angela Rayner.
Mr Speaker, I know the Deputy Prime Minister isn't very good on facts, but their party did crash the economy. And he will know that according to his own government's data, over 2 million buy-to-let properties are missing out on support. No-fault evictions are up by 116% this year. So will he tell us if the Prime Minister has a spine now to stand up to the vested interests in his own party and finally deliver their promise to ban no-fault evictions?
Come on. You're going to do it?
I don't think the Prime Minister is going to take
Daniel, going a bit far there, but
weakness from the party opposite.
Just maybe throw fruit at them.
There's a lot of talk about reshuffle in the air from the Labour Party. The last time the leader of the Labour Party tried to sack the Right Honourable Lady, she walked out with a promotion. But we will
Why are you talking about party
continue
politics?
to stand behind renters and to support them. And my right honourable friend...
You know, these are the first people to talk about, playing party politics. She's asked a serious question there about the fact that there are thousands, tens of thousands of people who are facing real difficulty right now, because their mortgages are coming up and they can't get new products and they're stuffed. They're going to lose a lot of money if things don't change very quickly. And he's talking about party politics. He's talking about a cabinet reshuffle and the shadow cabinet that happened years ago. It's like ancient history, but this is what they do in the Tory party. They deflect, they play whataboutism. Oh yeah, you think I'm bad. And now that a lot of the stuff that Rishi Sunak's been coming out with in the last few Prime Minister's questions has been purely hypothetical. Oh, if you think it's bad now, just think how bad it would be under Labour. Which isn't really the defence that he probably thinks it is, but he's not the smartest, is he?
Will take all necessary steps.
Angela Rayner.
Mr Speaker, that answer is pathetic for all those people that are facing homelessness on his watch. We will ban no-fault evictions, Mr Speaker, unlike the party opposite. And Jessica and her 4 children from Plymouth were evicted from their home in April. They're temporarily living with Jessica's mother in a cramped house where her 2 eldest children are sleeping on blow-up beds in the front room surrounded by their belongings. Hardly the decent, secure life that his government promised. Don't families like Jessica deserve better?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I'll tell you what we're doing for families like Jessica's. We are increasing the national living wage. It was this party that introduced the national living wage, not the party opposite. It is this party that has doubled the personal allowance, cutting taxes for those people. And it is this party that has lifted 1 million people out of unemployment. I'm immensely proud of the record of this government, and that's why people will not trust the party opposite to crash
cause
the
loads of
economy
shortages and people doing loads of jobs. One person's doing like 4 jobs. Also, you can't someone employed if they work an hour a week.
I was very clear on what the Labour Party would do, but I can't see us getting through a single one of these encounters without the Deputy Prime Minister blaming the opposition for his government's own record.
Yes. Thank you, Angela.
When asked yesterday about
blaming the
record
opposition.
low number of council houses being built, the
Housing
Minister said she didn't recognise that statistic. When asked about support for people in temporary accommodation, she said it wasn't her brief, the brief of the Housing Minister. So if council housing isn't her responsibility, whose is it?
Well, they talk about jobs being taken by AI. Everyone in the Tory party could be replaced by an AI robot.
Under this government, that more council houses were built than when they were in office. It's actually under this party that we have record levels of housing being built.
What? Stop lying.
Proudly on the record of this
what
government.
Record levels? What are you talking about? There's not enough houses.
Broadly. Inflation and waiting lists coming down, growth forecasts up, Albanian crossings down.
What? Albanian crossings down? I mean, like, he's even trying to just, like, shoehorn the idea that, again, you know, hitting a barn door and then drawing a circle around the target. But those statements he just made are out and out lies. He's winding up the house. And, you know, we can fact check this in real time. Why isn't the Speaker doing his job and saying, stop misleading the House with your misleading rhetoric, your made up statistics, your way of manipulating, using weasel words in order to try and win an argument that you just can't win. We're putting a record number. They always say a record amount. Yeah, because inflation means that every year you have to put a bit more into the NHS. Every year has been a record amount, pretty much, except for the first few years of austerity, that has been put into the NHS because otherwise the NHS will collapse. Like, it's just talking about a record amount. It's like saying, go into a shop and saying, or a pub. Go in the pub and ask for a pint. It's £5 now for a bloody pint in a pub. You know, it's £5. Okay, I'll give you £4 for it. Well, it's not enough for the pint. Yeah, but it's a record amount. What does that even mean? It's not enough for the pint. You're not building enough houses. You're not giving enough money to the NHS. You're not giving enough money to social services. You're not helping the economy. You're not helping small businesses. Record amount. Jesus.
Well, we're delivering on our priorities. What have we seen from the party opposite? They've U-turned 5 times in the last month.
Might want to turn your volume down for this. They are not in power.
Ready. The record is clear. The only thing you can rely on the party opposite to deliver is broken promises.
They are not in power.
Mr. Speaker, talking about broken promises, house building is set to collapse to its lowest level since the war. Rents and mortgages are soaring, home ownership is plummeting, and over 1 million people are trapped waiting for a council house. There is one simple solution to this problem, and everyone knows it. So when will he finally stand up for the national interest instead of their own interests and build more houses?
Prime Minister.
I say to the right honourable lady, she may not have listened to the answer I gave and just moved straight on to the next pre-scripted question. We have...
Yes, it's called Prime Minister's Questions. It's for the Prime Minister. You're the deputy. You're standing in for the Prime Minister. You have to answer the questions. Not Angela Rayner, not Tony Benn, not anyone else. They don't have to answer any questions. Tony Benn can't because he's dead. But, like, it's not up to anyone else to answer questions. It's Prime Minister's Questions in this session.
We have built more houses under this government
Lies.
than the party opposite. And I'm afraid
Lies.
It's the same old
That's just
thing
not
from
true.
her. She stacks up the endless job titles. She takes the...
Joe, it takes a while to build houses, to build housing estates, to, you know, get that all into process. The first few years of the Tory government, they would have benefited from the fact that Labour had put those plans into place. Like they benefited from the Olympics, which is something that Labour put into place. So he's taking credit for those years of Labour building houses in the first few years of the Tory government. But then after that, the Tories have done F all. And we just heard 1 million people on the waiting list for houses. 1 million people. Jesus.
The union cash, and she constantly talks Britain down. That's why we will do everything we can to keep Labour out of people's pockets, out of their lives, and out of government.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I might respectfully say to the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, if she wants to know what we're doing on rental reform, she can look at the rental reform bill that this government is introducing. But
I get to answer the question.
Is that your question?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question because our Deputy Prime Minister wasn't capable of it.
The Slapton line in my constituency. Can it be
What?
right
The what?
that Natural England is holding back major infrastructure development in South Devon and not allowing us to keep key infrastructure being developed?
What? What are you talking about?
Well,
Jobs for the boys.
My honourable friend is absolutely right to speak up for the Slapton line. It's one of the most beautiful roads in the country. I understand that the Slapton line partnership, which includes Natural England and the Environment Agency, are working closely with the local community.
What is it? A railway line? What is it?
We now come to the Deputy Leader of the SNP, Murray Black.
Yes. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to begin by thanking all of the staff in our health services across these aisles. And as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the health services in the UK, I want to reflect on two quotes from two people. The first one is, it's about using the private sector more, something we should be very comfortable with. The second quote is, people go as NHS patients to the private sector and we could do more of it. Can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister which quote is from the PM and which is from the Leader of the Opposition?
Well, Mr. Speaker, may I actually just begin by saying genuinely how sorry I was to hear that the Honourable Lady will be standing down at the next election. She and I joined this House at the same time, and I know she has contributed much to her party and to this place. And may I also say, I'm sure she will wish to join me in celebrating His Majesty King Charles receiving the Scottish regalia, I think pretty much as we speak.
No. Off with his head.
It's time for a Damascus conversion, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to the NHS, I will take absolutely no lectures from either party on it. It has been there.
Yeah,
for
Liam.
Me. I was
bloody
born in an
tits.
NHS hospital. My children were born in an NHS hospital. It's been there for me and my family, and this government has put record funding into it.
Murray Black.
Record funding, here we go.
The Deputy Prime Minister, I thank him for his kind words, and we did join this place at the same time, and I'm pretty sure we'll be leaving at the same time.
Hey! That's why we like Mary Black. Come on, it's worth it for that, wasn't it?
That faces the health service across these aisles is workforce. And research shows that Brexit has worsened the UK's shortage of doctors. European nurses registering to work in the UK fell by 90% after the Brexit referendum. What more will it take for both him and the Labour Party to admit the damage that Brexit is causing our health services?
Well, it all started off so nicely, Mr. Speaker, but I don't know whether the Honourable Lady has actually been listening to what the government has announced this week. We announced an additional £2.4 billion for our groundbreaking NHS workforce plan.
This is the government that gave £37 billion to Dido Harding for a phone app that didn't work.
That is the first time in the NHS's history that has happened. And if you look at the record since this party came to power, almost 40,000 more doctors and more than 50,000 more nurses. Once again, the Conservative Party...
How's he working those numbers out? Is he actually just going, well, these are the people who have come into the service, ignoring the people who have left, retired, passed away? Like, how does he come up with those numbers? There are over 100,000 vacancies in the NHS right now. 100,000. And his mates in his party, the new Conservatives, they're calling themselves now, are the ones who are saying, oh, we want to get rid of care workers who are born in other countries as well. My God.
Delivering for the NHS.
Delivering. Take a drink.
Tonight, at West Lindsay's planning meeting,
Gammon.
will apply for listed building consent to move the grave of Wing Commander Guy Gibson's dog. Apparently, the Home Office are quite content for 2,000 migrants to be...
Okay, so this is going to be about the dog at the Dam Busters, is it? That had an offensive name, and he's going to try and make some culture war stuff out of it. I don't know. He's so ugly.
Next to 1,000 of my constituents living near the base, or actually on the base. But the RAF think it's intolerable that they should leave the grave of a dog who's lain in peace for 80 years. More importantly, will the Home Office start listening to us? If they insist on this proposal,
Maddock,
will they
don't put comments like that up. You'll get chucked off the channel.
Let us get on with £300 million worth of levelling up, 100 buildings, many of them listed, a 2-mile-long runway, a spaceport, and let the dog lie in peace.
Well, I think my honourable friend...
Sorry, so we just had a Tory on complaining about someone, whoever, I don't know, the blob, blocking development in Devon. And now we've got this horrific piece of prize gammon standing up on the same party, complaining about development happening if it means moving a dog's grave. This is the priorities of the modern Tory party. Absolutely shocking.
Friend knows that we do have to take action to address the unacceptable cost of housing migrants in hotels. And I actually thank him for his constructive approach that he's taken to RAF Scampton playing a role in respect of that. Of course, Home Office ministers will have heard his broader representations, and I'm sure they will respond to him.
Sir Geoffrey Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I, on behalf of my colleagues, extend our deep appreciation to all those past and present who continue to be dedicated to our NHS, including our staff in the health and social.
Can no one else put the name of the dog on my chat, please? Especially, it won't come up on the side, but please don't put it in the chat. Thanks.
Care system in Northern Ireland. Mr. Speaker, in Northern Ireland, GPs, nurses, doctors, and carers are adversely constrained by a lack of sufficient funding for our health service. The Northern Ireland Fiscal Council have highlighted that our allocation falls beneath need, which compounds the difficulty year on year. Can the Deputy Prime Minister assure me of the willingness of the Government to engage on this issue and to ensure that public services get what they need to continue delivering for the people of Northern Ireland?
Delivering! Right, this dickhead here, Geoffrey Donaldson from the DUP, the party that's stopping the Stormont Assembly from assembling. Hence, why is we're asking Westminster for stuff? They should be making policy along with the other parties of Northern Ireland, but they won't. They won't because they are refusing to allow the Assembly to meet. And now he's in Parliament asking questions. Piss off. You don't get to ask questions. Sort your own mess out.
Yes, I'm very happy to give the right
maybe get into freaking
assurance. As he knows,
Assembly
it is
then.
the case that the Department of Health in Northern Ireland has been allocated £7.3 billion, an increase of 20 million above 22-23. But of course, it is the case that the absence of a Northern Ireland executive is exacerbating the severe challenges that the healthcare service in Northern Ireland is already facing. And a fully functioning devolved government is the right way to deliver the necessary reforms needed for the Northern Ireland Health Service.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of the 16,700 cases of melanoma diagnosed in the UK every year, sadly over 2,000 will prove fatal. Regularly applying sunscreen is our most effective weapon against this deadly disease, yet the Treasury remains stubbornly opposed to exempting VAT on these life-saving products.
Oh.
As a melanoma survivor, and with a further heat wave expected later this month, will my right honourable friend do everything in his power to remove VAT on high-factor sunscreen to save lives and to support the NHS as they celebrate their 75th anniversary?
That could have come from Labour.
My friend is absolutely right to raise the dangers of melanoma as a fair-headed person with a fair-headed family, where I'm acutely conscious of the need to wear sun cream. I won't trespass onto Treasury decisions in this setting, but I know my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, will have heard her representations.
Crawley.
Mr. Speaker, after 13 years of Tory government, this government's record is pretty dismal. Let's consider spiralling out of control inflation, interest rates set to hit 6.5% by the end of the year, energy prices double the rest of Europe, food shortages and strikes across the public sector and NHS, and graduates leaving university today with mountains of debt and little to no prospect of home ownership. Let me ask the Deputy Prime Minister, will he admit his Tory government's failure and urge the Prime Minister to call a general election now?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, rather than focusing on playing politics, we're actually delivering for the British people.
Delivering, take a drink. Actually, take a drink from saying playing politics.
To the Honourable Lady's litany. I was interested to note that her leader has been in power for 100 days. And what's their record been? 3 failing First Ministers, 2 unfinished ferries, and a failed deposit return scheme. I think we can all agree the people of Scotland deserve better.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative governments have a proud record of supporting the UK's steel industry. And I've stood up many times in this House, but I don't know where they're laughing, Mr. Speaker, because steel production halved under Labour. I've stood up many times in this House to talk about the importance of steel, not just to my hometown of Scunthorpe, but to our whole nation. So will my right honourable friend agree with me? We are always going to need steel in this country, and if we can't make it ourselves, we're going to have to ship it all from the other side of the world with all the emissions, environmental and ethical concerns that will inevitably bring. Will he reaffirm today the government's commitment to making sure that we take further measures to ensure that we have a sustainable, long-term steel-making production in this country?
That's owned by people from
I'm very
India.
happy to reaffirm this government's commitment to steel manufacturing, and I pay tribute to my honourable friend. I know what a champion she is for steel production in Scunthorpe, and long may she continue to do so. We have made meaningful offers of support to Tata and British Steel, and the Secretary of State recently visited Tata and British Steel to see firsthand the work underway.
Jamie Stone.
Great.
Mr. Speaker,
we had a
I'm
meeting.
sure that the Deputy Prime Minister will be as pleased as I am that work is well underway to construct the southern spaceport. In fact, it is ahead of schedule. Recently, the North Coast Space Cluster has been developed involving enterprise agencies and companies. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that this can build massively on the skills that have been built up for over many years at Dounreay? And secondly, that the establishment of links, international links, with possible companies in the United States can only be good news for the far north of Scotland?
Yes, facts.
Yes, I completely agree with the honourable gentleman's remarks. The development of this new spaceport is a key part of our ambition to grow the UK's space launch capabilities. And it is the fact that the first 3 years are expected to reach £20 million of investment, creating 40 jobs. And we are working with the United States, particularly through the Technology Safeguards Agreement, to allow UK companies to exchange technology with the United States.
Aaron Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I associate myself with your comments about the NHS and pay tribute to all NHS workers, both in Newcastle-under-Lyme and across the country? And on that note, could I welcome the new long-term workforce plan, and in particular the extra 40% places for dental schools? Access to dentistry has been an issue for a number of my constituents. And would my right honourable friend consider the merits of actually opening new dental schools, not just new dental places? Keele University is one of the best medical schools in the country and would make an excellent site for a new dental school if that would be...
You just sort of malfunctioned at the end there, didn't you?
My friend makes a very strong case for his constituency.
40 space
as
cadets,
a result of
40 new jobs.
NHS long-term workforce plan.
Amazing.
We are currently assessing capacity at existing dental schools to see whether they can accommodate the expansion in training places. But of course, we retain an open mind as to whether we need further such education facilities.
Kim Ledbetter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was a pleasure to join colleagues from across the House this morning for the NHS 75th anniversary park run on this special day. However, my joy was short-lived when I returned to my office to find the usual array of emails from desperate constituents who cannot get a doctor's appointment, a dentist's appointment, access to children's mental health services or proper care for their loved ones. Does he agree with me that, as today's report from 3 highly respected think tanks suggests, after a decade of underinvestment, our beloved health service faces either managed decline under the Tories or a Labour government with a radical new health and wellbeing strategy putting its back on its feet?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it may not surprise you to hear I don't agree with that characterisation.
Tories are so
Actually,
smug.
I'll tell you about this government's record on the NHS. Record funding.
Yeah, record funding.
Record
bullshit.
doctors.
Bullshit.
Record nurses.
Bullshit.
Record scans.
Record shortages. Record waiting lists.
Is in Wales.
Record waiting times for ambulances.
In the country.
The only other record is the length of the answers. Maybe we could speed up with Richard Drax.
He just lies.
Can I associate myself with your comments about the NHS? My constituents in Weymouth and on Portland and I are getting a little tired of being told that placing a migrant barge in our port is in the
this
national
guy
interest.
owns plantations in the Caribbean. Still, his family owns slave plantations that are still there now. That's where he makes all his money.
Illegal migrants. Talking
about illegal migrants, piss off. Honestly, this is safe for work. Piss off, you multi-millionaire slave trader bastard.
Many concerns, both
this guy is
on the barge
absolute scum.
And what the 506
Scum.
young men will do,
Scum.
going round a seaside resort
Scum.
at the height of the summer, unmonitored and with little money. Can
Scum.
my honourable friend stop this and ask my honourable friend, the Home Secretary, to do
yeah,
likewise?
poor people are the problem. We've got no money. Quick phone in jail
I'm sure
having
my
no money.
honourable friend appreciates that we need to reduce the bill of housing
to stop people like
asylum
Richard
seekers
Drax
in hotels, and we need to look at
MPs.
different measures to accommodate them. Of course, I am very happy to engage with
there's
the
a guy
honourable
whose family
gentleman.
owns
I'm sure
loads
the
of
Home
slaves, yeah.
Secretary
We still
will
have a
do
plantation
as well, to ensure that we can
over
find a
in
satisfactory solution in his constituency
Dominica,
that protects his constituency.
Don't quote me on that.
Erling Harris.
Nick and Dave, see you later.
Mr. Speaker. Last week, the coroner found that the cause of Luke Ashton's suicide in April
the most Welsh person
2021
ever.
was gambling disorder.
Ooh,
Immediately
yes.
before his death, Luke, bombarded with inducements, placed over 1,200 bets. At no
Wow.
point did the operator intervene.
Wow.
From his previous brief, the Deputy Prime Minister will have extensive knowledge of the harm these inducements cause. So does he agree that the commitments to curb advertising and promotions in the gambling white paper do not go far enough to reduce harm and prevent
They don't
more
go far
tragedies like Luke Ashton's suicide?
Here.
Well, the
Alan,
honourable
you're
lady will know
exactly
from
right,
our
but
conversations
the
when I
Tories
was
are in the
Digital
pocket
Secretary
of
that
the
I
gambling
share
industry.
her concerns about gambling inducements, and indeed I pay tribute to her for her campaigning
Gambling ads need to be
on
banned,
this
yeah,
issue.
absolutely.
I think we have got a very good set of proposals in the gambling white paper, and that sits alongside the 2019 NHS long-term plan, which committed to 15 specialist units across England to support those with gambling addiction by 2020.
He's lying. They're not going to do anything because the Tories are in the pocket of the gambling industry. Liam said that gambling needs to be banned outright. The problem with that is that it takes away strips it out of all regulation. But even as an Evertonian, I don't think that stakes should be sponsoring football teams. I don't think that should be allowed. I think advertising should be allowed. And now that everything's basically online, we need to have better tools for identifying people who are problem gamblers, because they might not go ask for help. A lot of people don't ask for help, and that's when these problems arise. And make sure that people don't spend all their money that they haven't got on gambling, which leads to what the lady was talking about.
24. So I think we have good proposals in place.
Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I draw the House's attention to the fact that we have the Chief Minister of His Majesty's Government of Gibraltar in the gallery, Fabian Picardo. Can I seek an assurance from the Deputy Prime Minister that as the UK-EU negotiations with regard to the border between Gibraltar and Spain continue, that the sovereign, freely expressed opinions of the Gibraltarian people to remain British will be protected, as well as their security?
What about the 96% who voted to stay in the EU? Are you going to respect that, Henry? Are you?
An economic interest.
Well, I'm very
Thanks for
happy
the super
to give
chat,
my
Maggie
honourable
Pie.
friends
Really
and
appreciate
indeed the
it.
First Minister of Gibraltar exactly that assurance. This government will always stand up for the people of Gibraltar and their right to determine their own future.
Gerald Jones.
Sorry. 96% of them voted to stay in the EU and your party dragged them out of the EU against the expressed will of 96% of the people who voted in the 2016 referendum. Don't talk about their democratic will. They don't have any. They are a slave territory to England. I was going to say the UK. It's not even the UK, is it? It's just England.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sarcomas are cancers that can affect any part of the body, inside or outside, including muscles, bones, tendons, blood vessels and fatty tissues. Sarcoma is rare. 15 people diagnosed every day in the UK, around 5,300 around the UK, including families in Merthyr Tydfil and Rumney. Awareness is low, and as this is Sarcoma Awareness Week, could I ask the Deputy Prime Minister if he'll meet with me and families affected so that we can discuss what more the government can do to raise awareness and vital funds for research
how
going
much
forward.
he hates them.
Well, I'm very happy to give that commitment, I think probably best on behalf of health ministers. And indeed, one of my colleagues in Downing Street, who was the Prime Minister's PPS, sadly died of that disease. So I have a great awareness of it, and it's important that we continue to raise its profile.
Although
we are a bit knackered, aren't we? Plumbed off.
Last week, as an alumni of Durham University, I had the pleasure of going to the installation of Dr. Fiona Hill as the new Chancellor. Dr. Hill started in Bishop Auckland, couldn't afford a school uniform to go to the high school when she...
So here's a red Tory, got in 2019. Red Tory, he's a red wall Tory, got in 2019. And I think Sedgefield was Tony Blair's old constituency.
Got a scholarship, finished up working in the White House, and is an example of social mobility beyond it. That's what she's going to be championing as the new Chancellor. Could I ask me to encourage the Secretary of State for Levelling Up to work with me and the Left Behind Neighbourhoods APPG to do everything we can to support her?
The Left Behind neighbourhoods. Who left these places behind? The Tories. That's who. Do you know who talked about the Northern Powerhouse? Something that didn't ever happen. Someone talked about the extension to HS2 up to Sheffield, maybe up to Newcastle even. That's never going to happen. No, they backheeled that as well. Left behind. Places that feel left behind. Do you know where it wasn't left behind? Liverpool. Liverpool got nearly £2 billion from the Objective One, EU Objective One fund. We weren't left behind by the EU. We're left behind by these lot. Bloody Tories. Scum.
Well, I join my honourable friend in relaying the government's congratulations to her, and I will ensure that the Secretary of State hears the representations that he made.
Tim Doherty.
Mr. Speaker, universities in Cardiff and indeed across the UK are home to world-leading research and innovation, but thousands of jobs and huge amounts of expertise are now at risk because the government's dithering in negotiations over Horizon. The FT reported last week that Sir Paul Nurse, Nobel laureate and head of the Francis Crick Institute, describing the delays as absurd and damaging science and damaging the country. So is the government still committed to negotiating a deal? And if they are, why don't they get on with it?
Good question.
Well, since we agreed the Windsor Framework, we've had very constructive discussions on Horizon, but the difference between my party and his is that we won't accept a deal at any price. We will wait until we get the best deal for the British people and British universities.
Yeah, I like that message from Sfax. No, Graham, it's all opposition with their minority of votes blocking the Tories from action. It's like when Trump got in 2016, what a year. When he got in 2016, it wasn't just the presidency. He also, the Republicans took control of Congress, like the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they still managed to not get anything done. But it was all the Democrats' fault for something, or they'll move on to something else to talk about the deep state in America. In the UK, they've started referring to the blob. That's what's stopping them from doing things. And this is a fictitious thing that they've made up in their head. They had an 80-seat majority. They effectively have a dictatorship for 5 years in which they can do pretty much whatever they want. They can get away with it. If they're organised enough and they're dedicated to getting this stuff done enough, they can do what they want. And what do they want to do? Do they want to solve the problems in the economy and housing and education and health service? No, silly. We want to indulge in culture wars. We want to stop protests. We want to stop people going on strike. We want to stop people going and living in other countries. How dare they? Or retiring in other countries. How double dare they? Man, oh man.
Bradley.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I am running a campaign at the moment, A Year of Reasons to Visit the Moorlands, where each week for a year I will focus on one of the many reasons to visit the Moorlands, including we've had so far Hetty's Tea Room in Froggle, we've had Heaton House Farm Wedding Venue, we've had brilliant artists and Austin Towers, and this week is Leek Club Day. Can I invite my right honourable friend and you, Mr. Speaker, to visit the Staffordshire Moorlands constituency to see one of the reasons for yourself?
What?
Well,
sorry, that was an actual question asked by a grown-up in Parliament, in the British Parliament, the mother of all parliaments, and she's talking about bloody tea cakes in Staffordshire.
I would be delighted to do so. I think maybe Hetty's Tea Room is more my cup of tea than Alton Towers, but I'm sure I can arrange a visit there.
I think we'll both go on the big rides together. There we are. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think everyone in this House can recognise that my city of Dundee is a city to be proud of. World-leading universities, pioneering businesses and a determined SNP City Council leading the way, there is real ambition to deliver for the future. In order to continue our journey, the potential delivery of a world-class site by the Eden project in our city will help cement our reputation and bring further investment, jobs and boost our local economy. So can the Deputy Prime Minister therefore confirm that the UK Government will deliver on previous promises and finally commit to support capital funding for the Eden project in my city?
Well, I'm a very big supporter of the Eden project, and I very much hope we can have one in Dundee. Of course, the United Kingdom Government always stands ready to support people in Scotland and support people in Dundee.
Vicky Ford. That didn't answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I know, would have done. Imagine if you're in the pub with your mates and you say, "Can you get us a pint?" Or they say to you, basically, "Can you get us a pint?" Because you know you're the last to get around in, and you're like, "I like pints." I'm like, "Okay, you're gonna get one." Well, you know, I like them and I respect them. I mean, yeah, I think pints do a good job. Yeah, but are you actually going to get a pint? I need to know, because if you're not, I'll get one myself. Could you just answer the question? If people in everyday life spoke like politicians, spoke like this bunch of bastards, we wouldn't get anything done.
As the child of two NHS doctors, the sister of an NHS doctor and the wife of an NHS doctor, can I also say thank you to everyone who works in our NHS? And will my right honourable friend
Why are you part of a party that's trying to privatise it?
Congratulations to the medical students from the new medical school at Anglia Ruskin University in Chelmsford who are graduating as doctors in a couple of weeks' time. It's the first time we've ever trained doctors in Essex. It's been hugely successful. Will he meet with me to discuss doubling the size of our medical school?
Well, of course, I'm very happy
Enough
to
lies
offer
from the
my
House of
sincere
Crooks. Thanks very much for watching,
students.
Daniel.
I know
See you later.
What a difficult course it is to qualify.
If anyone wants to drop in a super chat,
as a
because
doctor, so they thoroughly deserve
obviously
the graduation
doing this
ceremony. And
doesn't
of course,
get many
health
views,
ministers
so
will be
if
very
you,
happy to
this
meet
makes it more
with my
palpable
honourable friend,
to
my right
you.
honourable friend, to discuss exactly those proposals.
Smug bastards here having me in the corner.
Mr. Speaker,
you know,
my
commenting.
constituent, who was a first-year university student,
Dropping a super chat.
tragically took his own life in May. He had signed a private sector tenancy for his next year's accommodation with his parents as the guarantor. The tenancy includes a clause which states that the responsibilities of the guarantor are unaffected by the death of a tenant, and the lettings agency are disgracefully insisting on enforcing this abhorrent requirement. My constituents not only have to live with the devastating loss of their son, but also face terrible financial hardship because of this cruelty. Will the Deputy Prime Minister support my call for the inclusion of a clause within the long overdue Renters Reform Bill to outlaw this practice and protect bereaved families?
Yeah, absolutely. Bloody hell. Taking money out off the dead. Fucking hate landlords.
Totally abhorrent, and I'm very much happy
Christ.
to look into the details of it and discuss what measures might be brought
Not
forward
all
to address
landlords
it.
are bad.
John Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At a time of record employment.
Can I just say that anyone who gets someone else to pay their mortgage for them on their second home, sorry, you don't talk to me about morality. Cheers.
An unemployment rate nearly half that of the EU average and strong inward investment. Can you explain
Bother-in-law.
why
I like that, Stephen.
every single Labour government since the Second World War has ended in economic failure,
with sterling weaker and unemployment usually higher.
What? Hang on. What are you talking about? If your party ends tomorrow, the pound is going to have lost 20% of its value, of its 2010 value against the dollar. 20%. Under Labour, the pound went to being worth $2. Every pound. $2. And they're putting out this lie now about, all Labour governments end with economic tragedy. Well, no, they didn't. The 2008 global credit crunch happened to all countries, and we weathered it better than most, actually. And in 2010, when the election came round, we were actually getting the economy back on track. The Tories then brought in austerity. They brought in bloody Brexit. Then we got knackered by COVID on top of that, and then dickhead bloody Putin decided to invade Ukraine, shooting up petrol prices and obviously the inflation that came with that. And the Tories have decided over all this and gone, how can we make money out of it? They're not trying to help anyone. Just how can we make money out of it? So when these scumbags leave office, which they will, maybe even 200 of them in the next election, hopefully are going to be out of a job, they're going to leave with more money than they started with. The rest of us, they're going to leave office and we're going to have less money than when they entered it.
Well, my honourable friend is totally
Jobs
right.
for the boys.
I might add to it
Feather in the
they
nest,
also spend
line
every
in their
last
pockets.
penny in the Treasury.
Oh,
I well
is he going to get
remember
his
when we
note
entered
out?
government, the
Is he going to
note
get his
saying
note
there was
out?
no money
Is he going to...
left.
Oh,
It
piss
never allowed to
off!
happen to the British
It
people
was a
again.
joke, you idiot. It was a joke. Sorry, hang on. I'm going to stop that there, right? There was no money left. That was a joke. That was a joke, right? It was a joke. It was a note left by the people leaving. You know, like they took the W's out the keyboards when Clinton's administration left the White House, you know, because George W. Bush was coming in. It was a joke. It was a prank. If we had no money in 2010, how the hell did we afford to pay for the Olympics in 2012 or the Golden Jubilee in 2012? Actually, no, it wasn't. Was it the Platinum Jubilee? What was it? Diamond Jubilee? It was one of the Jubilees. How did we had no money, apparently.
Minister didn't turn up to the Owen Paterson vote, he didn't turn up to the Boris Johnson vote, he won't stand up to the MPs who called the Privileges Committee a kangaroo court, and yesterday he embarrassed himself by acting like a stroppy schoolboy in front of the liaison committee. Now, with NHS waiting lists at record high and the Tory mortgage penalty hitting my constituents hard, he's bitten off more than he can chew, hasn't he?
Yes. Well said, Sarah.
Well, I'm not sure that there was a question in that. Well, my
No,
respect to say, Mr.
he's bitten
Speaker,
off more than he can chew, hasn't he? Question mark.
Rant. I would proudly defend this government's record.
It was a running joke.
Growing the economy in the last 2 years faster than any other country in the G7.
Oh, here we go.
Low
Lies.
of unemployment.
Lies.
Fewer people in workplace households.
Braverman nodded
all of
away
which
like a
would
nodding
be put
dog in the
at
back of a
risk
car.
If the party opposite
Lies.
ever entered power.
It'd be worse if they're in power.
Deputy Prime Minister's questions, just like the Chamber. Sorry.
Deputy Prime Minister's questions. Jesus Christ, that was bloody painful, wasn't it? Oh, very sorry about that. I'm very sorry you're getting the intro again, but that's all right. Hello. I'm back in the room. Right. Yeah, I need to sort out that thing where my intro comes in every time I do a transition. Right. Anyway, so that was Deputy Prime Minister's questions. Thank you for sticking with me. It was a bit longer than normal because I kept stopping it to talk because I've had complaints about not stopping it and talking over people so people couldn't hear what they were saying. So try not to do that. I don't know if that worked for you. If it didn't, well, tough. Jabroni says, I still remember the one question time with Brexit voters and they're all Caucasian old people with accrued wealth. It's rather telling. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But the number of millennials and Generation Z voters in the next election is going to be more than ever before. And they are 90% not Tory. It's more than 90%, I think. Liam's got a banging headache now. Oh, dear. Sorry to hear that. Go and sit in the corner, turn the lights off, and put some Enya on. That could make it worse. I don't know. Stephen says 100% lies. Indeed. I like the stopping, says Eric. Okay, I'll keep doing that then. Right. I will be... No, I won't. I will be back in in the chat tomorrow at 9:30, but with the morning show presented by Phil Morehouse. He's coming over to present. So enjoy that tomorrow at 9:30. I'll be in the chat chatting away. So if you want to drop me a message then, that would be cool. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for all of the comments. I did read them all. Not all of the comments come up on the screen here. I've got it set. So if you use a word that's problematic, it won't come up on the screen. And that works also for swear words where you pretend that, there's a star in it or something. It probably won't come up here. Please don't try and test it out. Just for future reference, we're having a huge problem on this channel with our videos being demonetized. And that's why Phil and I try very hard not to swear, not to say anything too controversial or whatever, because it's taking a week for these videos to finally get fully monetized again. So it really doesn't help if people are putting stuff in the comments that is obviously going to lead to demonetization. Just something to bear in mind. I know people probably didn't do that on purpose, but yeah, just something to bear in mind for future reference, gang. Okay, so I'm going to head off now, and I will see you. Phil will see you tomorrow at 9:30. On Friday, we've got Morning Brew in the morning at 9:30. I'll be presenting that. Then we've got the agenda at 1 o'clock with me and Phil Morehouse. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll be doing the Labour Social. Again, hopefully with Super Tansky and that. So please join us for those on Friday. So the Labour Social schedule for the week. And until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your comments. And thanks for subjecting yourself to the weekly car crash with me, Jabroni and friends. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.